Hey, welcome back to the channel. When I used to do a lot of wine training, I used to hear the terms Champagne and Prosecco used quite interchangeably, and they're actually quite different styles of wine. So today I'm going to give you my top 5 differences between Champagne and Prosecco. They're usually made in completely different styles. Now, both of these wines can be made to be quite similar at certain points, and there's different styles throughout each category. But generally, Prosecco will be made, especially if you're buying stuff out of the shop that's kind of 10 to 15 pounds a bottle. It'll be made to be a lot more fruit forward, a lot more easy drinking and very approachable. Champagne, on the other hand, not that it isn't approachable, but it's a bit more complex. It would have been aged a lot longer, and it'll be more of a sort of dry, sharper and more biscuity sort of tones in the flavor. Also with Prosecco, what will normally happen is that the sugar in those grapes won't be completely fermented to alcohol, so they'll leave a little bit of sugar, which just gives the fruit in it a bit of a lift and sort of counterbalances that sharpness as well, making it a bit more sort of rounded, if you like, and if you think of that in terms of the flavor profile. Champagne, on the other hand, is made from grapes which are actually picked just slightly early, so they're actually not quite ripe, which just gives them that real sharpness. Now, the bubbles in that really balance it out, and you can get sweeter styles of champagne which really sort of balance it out. But the normal style that you'll get in the shop, a brut or even extra brut that you might buy, will generally be a bit drier, a bit sharper, and just have more sort of layers of flavor. Now, that's not to say that Prosecco can't be made that way. It very much can, and you can get some absolutely top quality Proseccos, but generally what you're going to find on the shelves in the shops is that more sort of fruit forward, slightly sweeter sort of style. They come from completely different places. So Prosecco comes from the north of Italy. It has to be made in a certain area of Italy. If it comes from outside of there, it's not Prosecco. Champagne has to come from Champagne. This is a legally defined area within France. If you make a wine and name it as Champagne and try and sell it within Europe, it will be completely illegal. That name is protected, and they protect it very fiercely by the Committee of Champagne from within the region. They're made from completely different grapes. So Prosecco will be made from an indigenous Italian grape which used to be called Prosecco, and in 2009 they renamed it to Glera. This gives different characteristics compared to the grapes they use to make champagne. Champagne is made from 3 main grapes. Now, technically, legally, there are another 4 that can be put in there, but it's generally the 3 main ones they use to make it. So those 3 grapes are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Yes, that's right, 2 of those are red grapes, but what they do is they just squeeze the juice out. They don't take any color out of the skins, and use that to make champagne. Now, obviously, you can have rosé styles of champagne which do take some of the color from those skins at times, but usually it's just that clear juice that they use to make it. They're usually made in completely different ways. So Prosecco is generally made in tanks on a large scale. So what this means is that there's no flavor taken from those tanks, and it's a lot cheaper in terms of the actual methods they're using. Now, this gives Prosecco economy of scale, which is why generally it'll be a bit cheaper usually than the champagne you find in the shops. Champagne, on the other hand, is made on a bottle by bottle basis. So what they'll do is they'll make a still wine, and then they'll take that wine, put it into a bottle with a bit of yeast and a little bit of sugar, and leave it within that bottle to actually ferment again, which is how you get the bubbles there. Now, Prosecco is basically doing the same thing there, but in a tank, so it's much larger scale, much easier and quicker to make. What this means is that the bottle you buy your champagne in is the same bottle that it was made and fermented in, which is kind of a cool novelty. I'm actually going to sort of cheat here a bit and combine 2 things, but there's going to be price and labeling, which is going to be the difference between these 2. So as mentioned, with champagne, it's a lot more labor intensive. They make a base wine, they put that into individual bottles, they add the sugar, they add the yeast, they ferment that in the bottle. It has to be aged for around about 12 to 18 months minimum before it can be released into the market. So there's more time of it being tied up in terms of having to sit in the cellars. So it's going to be a little bit more expensive, and also because of the area it comes from, that adds a bit of price to it as well. Generally for champagne, what you're looking at is you're paying minimum of sort of 30 to 40 pounds a bottle for a decent one. Even a not so decent one will cost you at least 25 to 30 pounds. That's going to be really your entry level, and that can go up to all sorts of prices. With Prosecco, there's going to be a bit of a difference in price. You're generally going to have this frizzante style, which is something you'll see on the label. Frizzante actually means semi-sparkling. It's not fully sparkling, which means the pressure in the bottle is less. It's just got more of a fizz than an actual bubble. And what that does is it generally takes an import tax for places like Ireland, the USA, the UK down a little bit, which will affect the price as well. So Frizzante Prosecco is actually going to be what you see on the label. It'll come in around about, you can buy them for 8, 9, 10 pounds a bottle, up to 15 pounds a bottle. Now you might see a Prosecco that's made spumante, which will be on the bottle as well. That will be a fully sparkling version. That just adds more fizz to it. It will add a little bit more to the import duties, which will push up the price a bit more. But champagne will always be made fully sparkling. Now with champagne, what you'll see on the label is brut or extra brut, and that refers to the dryness. So champagne is labeled according to the dryness. Prosecco is labeled according to the pressure in the bottle, i.e. the fizz. This in turn affects the price also because of the way that the wines are made. As we mentioned before, Prosecco is made in large tanks and therefore has economy of scale and will be a little bit cheaper to produce. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Hope you learned something. Maybe it made things a little bit clearer for next time you're shopping for your sparkling wine. If you enjoyed this, click the like and subscribe button down below. It really helps the channel out. Leave a comment if you've got any questions and I'll definitely get back to you, and I'll see you next time.